Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of requests. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. Some department keeps calling us asking for wheelchair delivery, and we have delivered all wheelchairs to them. The second story. Boss takes care of my safety, so the result of my work has deteriorated a lot. The third story. Doctor who just parks in any bay they like, lost his car after being towed. Today's first story is, we need as many as you can send us, stat. I work in the dispatch department of a hospital, and it's my job to receive phone calls from clerks and nurses requesting porters. I take the call, input the information, and send the info to the porter so they can proceed with patient transfer, equipment delivery, etc. A certain department calls us incessantly asking for wheelchairs to be delivered. It doesn't matter how many wheelchairs they already have, they will always call for more. They like to hoard them and hide them away in separate rooms, so that it looks like they don't have any when the porter arrives with more. In this hospital, hoarding any equipment creates delays for patient transfers because it becomes hard for porters to locate the needed equipment in areas where they're supposed to be available. This department has been getting away with this for years, and any complaint to management usually results in a temporary fix, about a week, in which we receive fewer requests for wheelchairs from said department. Anyways, on to my malicious compliance. It has been an extremely busy day, and the usual clerk from the hoarder department has been calling us excessively to deliver wheelchairs, and has been rude about it every time. We try to explain that we need to keep some wheelchairs on reserve for other departments, which we've explained thousands of times to them before. And she just scoffs at me and my coworkers and repeats that she needs wheelchairs because she doesn't have any. At one point, the clerk calls me in a rage and is screeching in my ear about how we still haven't delivered any wheelchairs, which we have, and we have call records to prove it, and that she needs as many as you can send us stat, then slams the phone in my ear. Okay, I'll send you as many as we can. I proceed to call a porter that's worked here a long time and knows this situation with the hoarder department very well. Also, he's retiring soon and has always been a guy that works around the rules, and we're all unions so we can get away with a lot. I tell him the situation and tell him very clearly that they need as many as we can send them. He chuckles and says no problem. About 30 to 45 minutes later, I get a call from hoarder department. It's not the rage lady from earlier, unfortunately, but it was still very satisfying to hear them say, "Can you please have a porter come remove some wheelchairs?" I say sure. How many would you like removed? She says, I kid you not, as many as you can get out of our hallway. It's congested with wheelchairs and is a fire hazard. It's super satisfying to hear them want wheelchairs removed for once, but I figure they're exaggerating as usual, except this time the opposite of their usual request. By this point, the porter who delivered them has gone home. I call a different porter that I get along with, tell them the story, and send them up to assess the chaos and remove some wheelchairs. She calls back when she's up there, and she's just laughing uncontrollably while telling me there are over 30 wheelchairs stuffed in the hoarder department and the connecting hallway. Apparently, the clerks were trying to push the entire collection of them out of the hallway at once because they couldn't get through the sea of wheelchairs to move them one by one. The retiring porter literally trapped them in their department with wheelchairs. Surprisingly, no one got in trouble or talked to at all. I'm not even sure my coordinator heard about the situation. Hoarder department is still consistent with calling for wheelchair delivery, but a little less so. The rude clerk is still rude, but she's very prompt on the phone and a little less sassy than before. I call it a win. Edit. Someone commented tag each chair with a number, and the one delivering them just notes the numbers so you can say exactly how many chairs they have. If it was up to me, we would have a system in place very similar to this. Like maybe order wheelchairs specifically for their department and color code them. The most I can do is bring it forward to management, and they deal with it as they see fit. Our management doesn't do much though. The other problem is wheelchairs are constantly being sent all over the place, so a number on each one wouldn't mean anything after a day. I also work in a hospital and we have a very cool system at work. There are devices commonly used in hospitals that keep track of where the equipment is. The device tells the central server what room it's in, so if they're looking for it, they know it must be somewhere in that room, and they can search until it's found. In fact, the device is installed in every room, and an inexpensive tag is attached to the objects being tracked. I think it costs about $1 each. Sounds like you need these locators on wheelchairs. Toshda will solve your problem. That way, if they hoard them, you can make a report of where they all are and get them in trouble. or just tell them you have 7 in room 308 when they call to ask for more. Or there's no funding for such a system, you can start a log that requires notifications of which doctors are requesting chairs. If you find specific cord staff, you may have the authority to bring such requests forward. The second story is, I need help lifting everything over 35 pounds? Say no more. I'm aware that there are many other greater feats of malicious compliance out there, but this one is mine, and it felt and still feels like a huge win. That's why I'm sharing. I was working at a pretty large manufacturing facility, in the largest, area-wise and employee-wise department. The parts that the company manufactured were all shapes and sizes, between half a pound all the way up to about 150 pounds. There were a few hoists around for some of the very large parts, but it was widely accepted that if you were capable and felt like it, you could pretty much lift and move whatever you wanted. Company policy at the time was that anything over 60 pounds required a team lift, but the job required lifting and repositioning these parts once every 1 to 5 minutes, so management mostly turned a blind eye for the sake of efficiency and productivity. On top of this, I was one of the most efficient and productive on the shift, with the fewest errors, and because of this, my supervisor at the time let me get away with a lot more than I should have. So as it always goes, the supervisor moved on, and we got a new one who immediately had it out for me. He'd get on me about saying hi to people I passed on my way to the bathroom. There were a few times he waited outside the bathroom for me, discreetly of course, but he'd always be watching the door when I came out. This went on for about a month, until I had to take some time off for health reasons, and apparently lost a lot of weight in the time I was gone. He commented on it and decided that I would have to team lift anything above 35 pounds, because I looked too weak. Yes, he said that, and yes, I was the only one this rule applied to. At first I decided, F that, no one else has this rule, I just won't do it. Well, he threatened to write me up. So I did what any working-class American would do when a problem arises with a supervisor. I went to HR. He's just looking out for your safety about sums up what they said. If any of you are still reading, this is the part you came for. I decided I'd just do what he asked. I worked exclusively with parts larger than 35 pounds. I started asking anyone and everyone to help me lift the parts. All of us in the department got along fairly well, and no one really liked this supervisor. I would find people across the department doing critical or time-sensitive things, explain what was going on, and ask them for help lifting, and they'd happily oblige out of spite for this supervisor. We'd really put on a show too. We'd make sure the part was in absolute perfect position before lifting, count to 10 just to make sure we had enough time to prepare, and carefully walk the part to where it needed to go. If a part was over 100 pounds, I would find 2 other people, to be absolutely sure I was never burdened with more than 35 pounds. My normally great numbers took a nosedive, and the high-dollar parts that I worked on weren't moving out of the department as fast as they were before. This caught the interest of the supervisor's boss, and we all sat down and had a meeting, which ended in the supervisor just about begging me to return to work, as I had previously before the rule, and his boss telling him to find something better to do with his time, unless he wanted to take on my job as well as his own. The cherry on top was that this supervisor got investigated and later fired, after more than 10 harassment claims. Edit. I did keep a notebook that I'd write everything down in when I'd get home, but at the time, escalating the situation didn't really cross my mind. Just getting up to even go to work was an uphill battle, and everyone around me was telling me that this was just the way things go. The only thing I was really thinking about was how badly I needed to just be done with the whole thing. Edit 2. I didn't include it because it wasn't relevant to the story, but I did go to HR multiple times, about the bathroom and about a whole host of other issues, including but not limited to, telling me that I was distracting other employees by being too pretty, touching and rubbing my shoulders after I repeatedly told him not to touch me ever, he telling me that as a woman I was better suited for a lighter duty department. He was a mess. I like this story, but watch yourself. The 60-pound rule is also for your protection. I worked in a factory, and we had a company policy that anything over 60 pounds required brigade lifting, 3 people. But the job required lifting and replacing those pieces every 1 to 5 minutes, so management basically turned a blind eye for efficiency and productivity, and we lifted it ourselves. One time we had an inspection stop by. When management saw it, there was a big reprimand to everyone involved, those who gave that order. After that, we always followed the policy and the rules. For the future, if you hurt yourself picking this up, it will give them a reason to challenge your workers' compensation claim. Never risk injury for the sake of productivity, especially against company's policy. If it ever happens to you in the future, just keep an incident log. You don't have to do anything about it, but if something happens, such as you finally reporting the behavior to Human Resources, you can retrieve that log, and it will demonstrate to them how serious the problem has become, and that they need to take care of it. The last story is, Do not lock your car in the car park? Alright then. Working in a pharmacy located in a medical center shaped like a T. Pharmacy located on one end of the arm. General practitioners located on the other end, with specialists having rooms between us. Medical center covers the whole width off the block with 2 car parks, one on each side of the building and each side of the T body, so unable to drive directly across from one another. There are designated spots marked my professional title, pharmacist, pathologist, radiologist, doctor, etc., at their closest car park, with other bays marked for either 15, 30, or 60 minutes, excluding disabled and delivery parking. Got a doctor who just parks in any bay they like in the pharmacy car park. Gets frustrated as the pharmacy closes 30 minutes before the doctors do. All the specialists being closed no less than an hour before the pharmacy closes, and we need to lock up the car park on our side of the building when we leave, and they lock up their end when they leave. Every night somebody goes up to the doctor's reception to inform them that there's that car there and they'll need to lock the gate once they leave. It's the same system for both gates, just an unnecessary hassle to walk across the length of the building. This goes on for about a month before we get a building-wide email from the building head stating the rules of the car parks, indicating as per the rules clearly stated on the car parks, cars will be locked inside if after stated hours. Surely enough, that night the doctor parks in our car park, and we leave that night with it locked inside. That was last night, and while I did not open, there was some confrontation between the doctor and the pharmacist in charge about his car locked in the car park, and the pharmacist requested the doctor send the pharmacy a formal email to not lock his car in the car park. Email was received and forwarded to the building head straight away. Right now, about 1 hour before closing, we've called the building head to get his car towed away. Per rules of the car park, it's been several hours since it parked in a 15-minute spot, and per his email did not want us to lock it in our car park. I've just gone down in person to the doctor's reception, and they've called and left a voicemail message for the doctor to move his car, as we're preparing to close. Update 1. Building head is here, informed of situation and has seen email exchange with doctor. Tow truck has been called. About 30 minutes until we close, car still in car park. Update 2. Tow truck come and give, car now towed away. Car park locked up, no cars inside. We'll update tomorrow with reaction. Update 3. So apparently building head had tried to see Dr. Toad to get the car moved before the tow truck was called. Apparently and thankfully the doctor was on short-term contract, explaining only having issues for the past few weeks, so it was not difficult to terminate the contract for Dr. Toad, since they were not following conditions of the contract, the evidence of the email, parking violations, and something else that was going on in the clinic between Dr. Toad and fellow staff. But alas, I do not know what. Since the doctor was contacted multiple times to park his car in the right spot, and to move his car that night, the building head had the right, authority, and no issues to tow the vehicle. The building head even had a printout of the email, saying that Dr. Toad did not want their car locked in the car park when he yelled at her last night that there should be reimbursed for the impound fee before the building head asked Dr. Toad to leave the premises before the police were called. Great way to start the workday knowing we should hopefully not see Dr. Toad again. Dude deserved it. The entitlement is strong with this one. It would be great to witness the doc as he will potentially complain about the outrageous cost of the tow and impound, claiming something about how little effort and time it took to get to his car. I think it's always nice when someone important is reminded that yes, the rules apply to you. Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a nice day.